Page 30. I write the songs. It's the last piece in the book. Congratulations if you made it this far. Let's talk about this one. Gonna go over this carefully and just talk about it one hand at a time here, alright? Right at the beginning, look at the right hand stuff. Starting out with a 3, and then an E flat C, and then a D flat B flat. Okay? Melody's on top. We connect the melody. So it's okay to have a little break in the silent down with the other one because we're listening for the melody. So in the second measure, look at that very carefully. 1 5, 1 4, connect the top note. 3. It's the top note that you got to bring out, okay? And then you do it again. Then up above, again the top note, bring it out. The rhythm there at the beginning, you're starting out with an 8th note, not a quarter note. So it's 1 and. See, the quarter note comes on the end of 1. 1 and 2 and. So the D flat, B flat comes on the and. So these are off beats. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The third measure is the same rhythm, okay? And the fourth measure is just 2. 1, last measure of the first line. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So carefully get those until it feels like you get the idea. But when you get to the second line, last measure, that is a triplet. But the first part of the triplet is a rest instead of a note. See, a rest is just like a note, except you have to be silent for that long. So if it's causing you problems, put in another D for the rest temporarily. So that would be, okay, counting wise, if I'm counting this, I'm going a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But for triplets, I do a 1 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So on the first beat, I'm going to go 1 and then immediately change to 2 and 3 and 4. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay? Then once I get the idea, I can take the first D out and just play the second one. So it's 1 and 2 and, okay, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You have to work these rhythms out real slow and carefully, but once you get it, it's there. Just make sure on the second beat that right hand is with the left hand. Okay, that's way too fast. This is a slow piece, but the point is, okay, keep the hands coordinated. Third line, all those A's in the second and third measure. You want to play it that way, go right ahead. I don't like to play it that way. So don't overcomplicate it, just trying to use different fingers on a note. I tend to, once I get going, I just alternate 3 and 1 until it's over. Because in that last measure of that line, 3 2 3 2 works really well. On that 3 2 3 2. Fourth line down. First measure. Play the rest, which means be silent for half a beat. It's important. That rest is, well, all rests are important, but don't connect this. Page 31 at the top. It's easy for me, and it's a habit for me, when I see 2 notes at the beginning of this, 2 repeated notes like that, 2 Fs, I just automatically do a 2-1. Same thing with the next line. And the next line. But on the last line, it's up to you what you do. Now, when you get down to the bottom of page 31, keep in mind the last chord of the right hand is a C, a D, and an F sharp. Okay. We're getting ready to change key signatures in the middle of the piece, which is what they do at the end. The natural signs for the two Fs, and then you put in sharp signs for the F sharps. That's about, so you're going from an F major to a G major. Very common in music to do that. On page 32, because this piece is 3 pages long, oh boy. Second line. They're recommending a fingering on 2 on the F sharps, and then a 1 on the G, and then a 3. Is that a 3 on the A? I find this a little convoluted, okay? I would recommend the 2 on the F sharps, but then a 3 on the Gs, and a 4 on the As. To me, why not? It makes more sense, because you're coming here, on the previous measure, you're here, but it's between phrases, and you get a half a beat rest anyway, so go down. So you can do that. Remember on those passages, connect the top note and bring out the top note. That's the melody. In the left hand, on page 30, it's the third line down, second measure. Look at that chord. It's an A, a D, and a G. Fun, huh? Okay, and then the next chord, the middle note, the D, changes to a C sharp. Okay. Now, in the last measure, there on third line, you could do a 4-2-1, because then that leaves your 5th finger free to play the next chord. In the last line on page 30, play the whole rest. It's important because the left hand gets a whole rest and the right hand gets a half rest, so we got a little, at least a half a count of rest in there. So without the pedal, I'm going to do beat 1 is 1 and both hands come up at the same time. On beat 2, 1 and 2, and then the right hand plays on the and of 2. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1. Now look at the fingering at the last measure on page 30 for the left hand, because you're coming off of a chord, and then it's 4, 3, 2, 1, 4. That puts you in position for the next chord. Good fingering, I like that. You don't have the pedal down through that because it would get mushy on those 8th notes. So you have to connect them with the fingers even more. You'd connect them anyway, but yeah. Okay. Top of page 31. First measure, it's a 5-3-1. Next measure, it's a 4-2-1. This is very common fingering in piano. It's a good one. Then I recommend for the last note of the first line, that quarter note in the left hand, I recommend a 4th finger on that F, because that prepares you for the next chord. So you're here, the last measure, then just do a 4th finger. The last measure, page 31, on the left hand, it's a 2-1 on the F-A. Then for the 8th notes, I recommend a 4 on the D, 2 on the F sharp, 1 on the G, 4 on the A. Okay? That puts you in position for what's coming on the next page. Okay? We already had a similar fingering to these at the bottom of page 30. It's just putting yourself in position for what's coming up. On page 32, at the end of the first line, I recommend a 4 on that last quarter note. We already had a similar situation because you're here. Just put you in position for the next chord is all. Third line down, first measure, you're here for the half note. Now look what you got to do. Now you got to go up to the D sharp Then the thumb plays the D, and that's okay. And the fourth line down, second measure, but you have a 2-1 here, and then you're going to go up to put the 2 on the D sharp, and then a 1 on the D. The last note of the piece, the bottom of page 32, that G has an 8/8 under it, so instead of here, we're going to play it here. And since I'm playing with a metronome, I'm going to hold that note, the fermata, out 4 counts instead of 2. Pedaling wise is pretty simple. Just do the pedaling they're showing you. I will mention at the bottom, on page 30, third line down at the end of the line, you have what they call a pause. The 2 little lines that are angled. I don't know which way they're angled. It's called a caesura. They call it a pause. That's what it is. It's a pause. It's a total break in the action, total break in the sound. Everything comes to a halt. It's like, what? For just a moment, and then you go on. When I'm playing with a metronome on this, I simply stop for 1 beat. And we have 1 beat of silence, so that measure is actually going to have 5 counts in it. So it would be this way: 1 and 2 and 3 and pause and. And that's what that's for. Now, when you're playing it without a metronome, you feel the pause. You just. It's for effect. It's for giving a little extra, hey, listen to me. Otherwise, the pedal is pretty much legato pedaling throughout. They lift it up when they tell you to lift it up. So 8th notes at the bottom of page 30, no pedal on those. You don't want to blur them. Okay. And I would recommend not pedaling the 8th notes at the bottom of page 31. They're saying it. To me, that's blurry and it's ugly. So I would recommend not pedaling the last 2 beats of the last measure on page 31. On page 32, 4th line down, last measure. I would recommend lifting the pedal up for those 2 8th notes. So they're not totally by themselves, because you're going to leave the left hand down. You still have it. But lift the pedal up so those 2 8th notes are a little cleaner. Okay, so that measure is here. I would lift the pedal up on the 3rd beat. Okay, so it's 1, 2, 3. So we get a break in the phrase. Then in the last line, it's important that you change the pedal so the left hand actually gets a rest. And that rest is important in the left hand in this piece. Otherwise, I could say a lot about the pedaling here, but I'm not going to. Just if it sounds mushy to you, then maybe you need to experiment with the pedal and lift it up in some places so it doesn't sound so mushy. Now, since we're not performing this together, I'm not trying to, then when you get to the bottom of page 31, we're going to stop. We're going to turn the page. I'm going to count us in again and give us another 4 beats, and then we'll play page 32. If you're performing it, you have to turn the page without losing the beat. The beat goes on. Well, in this piece, it's not so bad because you have a half note in the right hand. So what you can do is play that and then immediately use your right hand to turn the page as you're playing the 8th note. Right? Now, if you do that, you have to leave the pedal down because we need the half note. It's kind of a give and take. I have to do this I don't want to do in order to accomplish this I do want to do type thing. So if you're, yeah. Otherwise, you just memorize it. Now, what you can do, or what I would do if I were going to do this, I'd memorize the last 2 beats of the page. Okay, this part, I play it from memory. I don't need the notes. That way, I can turn the page on the beginning of the measure because it's just a half note. The pedal's down, So now I can lift up either hand and turn the page right quick before I have to play beat 3. I have 2 beats almost to do that. I can turn, and you can turn a page quickly if you have to. So turn the page, and that way I'm playing the last 2 beats from memory, but now I'm ready to go on. I can just keep going. We do things like this. You know, I have to figure out the page turns. You practice the page turns. Otherwise, you memorize it, which is actually the better way to do it, I think. I'll put the metronome on 60 because I gotta go slow. I mean, it's a slow piece anyway, but it's faster than we're going to take it. Now, when you perform it after you know the piece and you can play it the way it's written, then you can follow their instructions on the second line on page 30 to play freely. In other words, you can give and take with the rhythm in the right hand. You don't have to stay exactly there. You can whatever you feel. Sing it to yourself, and how you feel that is how. But the left hand needs to stay on the beat. The left hand is like a trap set or a drummer. They're going to keep that beat steady. That left hand has a job to do, while the right hand is just doing whatever. It can be tricky to do too, but it can be a lot of fun if you just experiment with it. Okay, right hand here, left hand here, foot's on the pedal. 1, 2, ready and go, and. Turn the page, put your hands where they go, foot's on the pedal, give us 4 counts, we'll play this page. 1, 2, ready and go, and.